All right, everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you the most basic beat match transition. I'm going to show it to you in 3 different ways. We're going to go easy, medium, and then expert level. Now, the first thing to do is, of course, have your tracks loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the first track. I'm going to go from Starships and Deck A. This was a VIP editor remix into Show Me Love VIP edit. And let's pretend you haven't set your mix in and mix out points. I know we did this in another video, but it'll be helpful to do it again once you have access to the controller. So once you've prepared your tracks, let's go ahead and do that now. I'll show you how to do the transition. So you can hold down Shift and use the jog wheel to seek through the track. You can go forward and backward. That's basically the same as clicking and dragging, doing a needle drop here. And let me go ahead and find where I want to start mixing out. So there we go. I'm setting cue point 7 there because that's when I know I want to start mixing out. And honestly, whether you want to do 32 or 64 beat transitions, it's up to you. I tend to do 32 beat transitions unless I am playing a genre like this where most of the songs have 64 beat outros, because then you have a little bit more time to mix if you're trying to make something really smooth. But unfortunately, people's attention spans can be too short. And here we go at the end. That's going to be where I set it. And what I can do is to make sure, I'm going to hit beat jump and just make sure we are 64 bars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sure enough, we are good. Let's go ahead and set our mix in and mix out points on the track on deck. On this deck. So what I'm going to do is press my first cue point. Then what I'm going to do is go to beat jump, and I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And sure enough, it looks, you can even tell by the waveform, there's something else going on here. There we go. So the simple beat match transition goes like this. Step number 1, make sure your BPMs are the same or are aligned. Step number 2, once the playhead on the deck that you're mixing out of reaches the mix out point, press play on the deck you're mixing into. Step number 3, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the phase is lined up by adjusting the jog wheel forward or backward. Now, steps 2 and 3 can be helped with using the sync button, but I'll show you how you can do it without using sync in this video. Step number 4, you're going to go ahead and start moving your crossfader over from the track on deck A to the middle, and then eventually over to the track on deck B. And then once your track meets that mix out point, this is step 5 on the deck you're mixing out of, be sure that you're pretty much almost all the way out or completely out, so there isn't some awkward silence there. And by then you should be completely mixed in. So this is the basic version, but we'll add some more interesting things as time goes on. So I'll show you this basic version, then I'll show you how you can make it better. So let's go ahead and seek. Now, let me give myself plenty of time so we can go ahead and line up. So step 1 is to line up the BPMs. So I'm going to go ahead and shift this to 127. And now I'm going to hit play on the track on deck B. Except I didn't do it at the mix in point. So let's go ahead and do that again. Once again, it's good to be sure you're ready to mix in at the mix in point when your track at the mix out point reaches its mix out point. Let's try that again. Step 2 is make sure we are lined up. I hit this button a little early, so I can actually just flick it this way, make sure they're lined up. And now move the crossfader over. Step 4. And there you go. That's how you do your first transition. Remember these 5 steps and you'll be able to do these beat match transitions pretty well. Now what I want to do is show you how to do this transition, but what we're going to do is we're going to add using the low filters on the tracks we're mixing in and out of. And what this will allow us to do is basically trade the bass lines, and this is really important because you typically don't want to have too much low frequency playing at the same time. Reason for this is your wavelengths are really long, so you can have the big cancellations, and number two, it's also very easy to overload or clip your system. So basically what we're going to do, when I start mixing in on this track, I'm going to have the low end turned all the way down. And now when I start mixing in, I'm going to move the crossfader to the middle. So steps 1, 2, and 3 are going to be the same, except we'll add another step, which is make sure your low is turned down. Then when we move the crossfader over to the middle, we're going to add a new step, which is slowly trading the bass lines. So at first, it's going to be the low end on this track playing over this track. Then when we trade them, it'll be the low end of this track playing on top of this track. And usually you'll want to do this about halfway through. You can then trade them, which sounds really cool. And then from there, the same, we have the rest of the steps where we basically move the crossfader all the way over, so we no longer hear any of this track on deck A. So let's go ahead and try what that sounds like. I'm going to start this a little bit before, but in this case, we're going to make sure this is all the way down, make sure my tempo fader is the same, and make sure I'm ready. And use the Q.1 to mix in. So here we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and start trading them. And there you go. Pretty good. The last step I want to do, the last thing we can do is go ahead and add some sort of echo or delay. And what I'm going to do is use this, basically this knob, rather than it being a filter, I'm going to switch this to, you can do delay or reverb. I'm going to go ahead and choose the echo, actually. It's called echo on Virtual DJ, but it's the same as delay. So Virtual DJ has a delay, which is different than its echo, but usually in most other programs like Serato or Traktor, it'll be called delay, but sometimes you also see echo out. So the difference here is we're going to do the same thing where we trade the bass lines, except as we start mixing out of this track, we're slowly going to echo out. So let's hear what this sounds like, basically without mixing. Which can really help just sort of smooth over that transition. So what we're going to do is once we trade the bass lines and we start filtering this track out, we'll just go ahead and apply the delay and then bring the filter down so that delay tail echoes over the top of the track we're mixing into. Once again, what this does is it helps smooth over or lubricate that transition, sort of catalyzes it for you chemistry people, makes it easier to transition smoothly from one to the other. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to jump all the way back, and we are going to get started. Start echoing it out. One thing to always remember is be sure to reset your gain knobs and your filter knobs, because when you load another track that you want to mix onto deck A and you start mixing it in, you don't want to be accidentally having some sort of effect applied or things, messed up with the EQ. Of course, if you leave your low end turned down, you're of course going to be all set, ready to mix into the next track. So in that case, it's okay if you leave that done, but just be careful about the effects. You wouldn't want to, for instance, say I'm reaching the end of this track. Let's say I want to mix it out here. So you wouldn't want to do something like that. So just be careful. Once again, it's just good to double check, make sure all your knobs are set. Some DJ applications even have a way when you load a track of resetting all the deck controls, but I don't like that because sometimes you don't know where the control is. So it's better to just mirror the hardware and remember it yourself. So hope you found this helpful. These are all the beat match sort of transitions. Once again, it's really easy if you use sync to do it, but it's good to know how to mix without sync because there are other nice features, other tracks that'll be good where you won't be able to use sync. So be sure you know how to use it without practice, but of course don't be afraid to use it, especially when you're starting out. In the next video, we're going to be looking at slam transitions. So see you then.